Hello and welcome everyone to my tutorial on the new partner pairings in Commander Legends. There are 41 new partner commanders, making a total of 56 partners when you include the original 15 that were printed in the Commander 2016 decks. It's really overwhelming trying to comprehend all the possible decks and combinations of commanders. Honestly, that's an absurd amount of possible partner pairings. For this video, I went through all the possible pairings to filter out the bad ones and the ones that didn't make much sense, so it's easier to digest all the possible decks that can be built. While going through the partners, I noticed that each commander has an archetype that they fall under. You probably want to pair up commanders that are under the same archetype so they can synergize with each other. There are a couple exceptions I'll go into under the Miscellaneous group, but the partners in general follow this rule. So let's get started with, these are partners that you want to use for a Voltron strategy. These are commanders that you equip with either auras or equipments to deal 21 commander damage to your opponents to take them out of the game. Akiri Lineslinger and Bruce Tarl were the old partners that go well with the Voltron strategy, so they'll pair well with most of the new Voltron partners. Anara Volvid Familiar. Having Indestructible on your commanders that you're planning on swinging with is obviously useful. He does give himself Indestructible, so he can be the partner that you use to deal lethal commander damage. A 4-4 for 4 mana isn't very exciting stat-wise, so you'll probably want to prioritize giving him evasion like Unblockable, Flying, or Trample, and you want to focus on giving him a big power boost. You can completely ignore toughness boost since your commanders are indestructible. Really, any of the other Voltron partners pair well with him. I would combine him with a partner that helps make Anara better rather than a redundant commander that tries to kill with commander damage. Ardent Intrepid Archaeologist is basically a Cigar's aid on a creature, with the added benefit of being able to move the equipment and ores every combat on your turn, all for just 3 mana. I think he's probably the best Voltron partner commander. He doesn't have good stats, but the amount of mana you'll save and how much faster your deck will operate will make him incredibly dangerous. He's got everything that you need for an equipment deck, so the other partner can really be anything. Either a solid commander to equip to, or a commander to help make the deck run smoother with something like card draw, or a partner used just for access to colors, although white already has just about everything you need for a Voltron deck. Dargo the Shipwrecker is a 7/6 with Trample, which are some intimidating stats. As a Zergo player, I know how important having that 7 power is for killing opponents with commander damage. You want to cheat him in early by sacrificing artifacts and creatures to get him attacking as soon as possible. He's the guy that you want to equip and enchant with your Voltron pieces, so the other partner should be something that helps with your game plan. Any of the assisting Voltron commanders, sacrifice synergy commanders, or card draw commanders would be solid choices. Honestly though, if you're playing Dargo, you should be playing him as a combo deck, rather than a Voltron deck, which I'll go into in the combo section of this video. Falthus Shadowcat Familiar gives your commanders 2 keyword abilities, Menace and Death Touch. Menace is a mediocre evasion effect, but paired with Death Touch, it makes blocking very annoying for your opponents. Death Touch plus Trample is basically unblockable, so you definitely want to prioritize Voltron cards that give Trample. A 3 mana 2/2 isn't very exciting stat wise, so you may want to partner with a commander with good stats, or just get a partner that will let you play and equip a lot of Voltron pieces of Falthus to make it a threat. Jessica Thrice Reborn. Yeah, triple damage is a lot. The name of the game when using her is getting your commander 7 power and making her unblockable so it can start one-shotting your opponents. Kedis Emberclaw Familiar. Hey, it's Saskia, but actually playable. Sorry Saskia players, but it's true. Kedis is going to be another assist Voltron commander since a 1/1 for 2 isn't going to do much. The name of the game is getting evasion and as much power as possible on your Voltron commander to try and kill off as many players at once as possible. I guess this card is trying to solve the aggro problem of killing one player and then having the other 2 team up to kill you, by killing all of them at once. Kelith Sunmane Familiar. 1/1/1 counter just isn't very good. but a 2-mana 1/1 that pumps itself every attack is really efficient. I'd use him as a low-to-the-ground Voltron deck that uses really efficient cards to pump him up. You want to pair him with a Voltron assist card to get him to enough power to start taking out players. Radiant, Sarah Archangel. Protection can be used as evasion, and a flying 6/4 really solid stats. Having to tap a flying creature for protection unfortunately has nothing to do with a Voltron strategy, which is a little awkward, and 7 mana is way too much for a commander. Radiant plus Estuar is a solid pairing, and make sure when you get Radiant out that she stays out and can get protection by tapping Estuar. It's kind of an awkward Voltron deck, but it is a possible build. Rebek, Architect of Ascension, is used to protect your equipment. It's a bit of a small effect, but a useful one. Rebek doesn't protect against Vandal Blast, which is a huge issue, since that card is usually what can destroy a Voltron player. Arden and Rebek could be a good partner pairing, since Arden already does everything that you need, and she can just help make the deck more resilient to removal. Rograk, Son of Roga, has some solid keyword abilities: First Strike, Menace, and Trample. Blocking him is a nightmare. All you need to worry about is getting his power up. You don't really even care about keeping him alive since he costs so little mana. You want to pair him with a partner that can pump him up, or a partner that can help make the deck run more efficiently with something like card draw. With these partners, you want to go wide with tokens. You want either commanders that make tokens or commanders that help pump up your tokens. Tana the Bloodsower was the only token related partner commander, and maybe Ravos since he could pump up your team. Alaru Solemn Ritualist can create spirit tokens. I guess he's also a sacrifice and a +1/+1 counter commander. He's trying to do 3 different things, and he doesn't do any of them very well. There are better token creators. Don't use this guy, unless if you're doing a +1/+1 counter /sacrifice/token deck, which no one is doing. Htk Salvage Splicer is a Golem tribal deck with a side of artifact sacrificing. Just making one Golem is kinda mediocre. Like, freaking Urza makes an artifact token when he enters the battlefield, and he does about 1,000 other things. He makes tokens and pumps them up, everything a token deck wants, but he just doesn't do either one very well. You need to run a lot of Golem tribal in the deck to make him solid, but none of the other partners make Golems. He's really good at pumping up creatures when paired with gold or treasure tokens. Toggle's a solid pair since the rocks trigger Htk when sacrificed. Rebek can protect your Golems. Silas Wren can get back the artifacts that you sacrifice. Honestly, I don't see this guy being able to output a lot of damage. The best thing you could do is sacrifice a lot of gold or treasure tokens, but it's not likely to be enough to one-shot anybody. He's definitely weird and hard to evaluate, but I just don't see him doing much. Kamal, Heart of Krosa, is a mini Craterhoof in the command zone. This guy is perfect for any deck that wants to go wide, especially with tokens. He's even able to make an army of his own if you have a ton of lands. Like the original green Kamal, you can just ramp as much as possible and enable Kamal to one-man the game, or you can build a token army and let him be the finisher, serving the same functionality as Craterhoof, although you probably won't be able to kill the whole table like you can with Craterhoof. Nadir, Agent of Duskanel, creates elf tokens when he leaves the battlefield. It's kind of an awkward way of creating tokens. I guess it's supposed to be used as a way to recover well from board wipes, which are the bane of any token deck. I'd focus more on elf tribal than token tribal with this guy, so I'd pair him with one of the elves, or Kamal. Prava, the Steel Legion, pumps up your tokens and creates tokens, everything a token deck needs, but unfortunately he doesn't do either one very well. 4 mana for a 1/1 is just pathetic, and +1/+4 is a weird and pretty mediocre stat boost. Tevetzat, Doom of Fools, creates 2 0/1 Thralls with his +2 Planeswalker ability. Creating 2 tokens each turn is solid, especially if you have a way to pump them up. His +1 gives the deck some card draw and a sacrifice outlet. I'd recommend either Kamal or Prava, depending on the colors you want, or Ravos if you want to lean more heavily on the sacrifice theme, since you can recur the creatures that you sacrifice. Tormod the Desecrator creates tokens in a weird way. So weird that your second commander spot needs to be a commander that's able to trigger him. So Ravos, Ghost of Ramirez, or Silas Wren will do. I'd probably recommend Ravos since he's also able to pump up your tokens. These commanders benefit from running cards of the same creature type. Tana was the only old partner that had anything to do with a tribal strategy, since she can be sapling tribal, but even that's a bit of a stretch, so tribal partner commanders haven't really been a thing until now. Pirates are a draft archetype in Commander Legends, so naturally they made some pirate tribal cards to go along with it. Breach's Brazen Plunderer doesn't work unless if you're running Pirate Tribal, so you want to pair him with another pirate, basically just to have another creature to trigger his ability. Dargo the Shipbreaker is a pirate, but he's better as a combo deck than a tribal deck. Ghost of Ramirez de Pietro has evasion, so it can get up when a pirate does damage to an opponent trigger, but he's really used for his own weird deck, since his ability is a little difficult to play with. Malcolm Keen-Eyed Navigator pairs well with Breaches, so I think you want to use those two if you want to run a pirate tribal deck. Unfortunately, you'd only be running red and blue, and a pirate deck really needs to be Grixis, so you might end up having to run Admiral Beckett Brass, and have these two in the 99. Galandra, Caller of Wirewood is an elf that taps for mana in the command zone. The CMC 6 or greater ability really doesn't have anything to do with elves, since elves generally have a low CMC, so he's probably not the right commander for an elf tribal deck. I honestly didn't even realize he was an elf for the longest time. I thought it was like a tree folk or elemental or something. Sorry, but the thing doesn't look like an elf at all. Myra, Thorn of the Glade cares about elves dying and gives you card draw. Card draw can be a problem for elf decks since you can dump your whole hand out quickly since elves ramp and cost such little mana. She also gives you access to black, which is something few elf commanders have. I pair her up with either Numa or Kamal. Both have a similar functionality and give you access to green, something an elf deck obviously needs. Nadir, Agent of Duskanel, is another black elf tribal commander. He can create tokens, but in a very strange way. I think the card draw that Myra provides is much more useful. Elves generate a ton of mana, and putting it to use using Numa can turn your mana dorks into high power and toughness threats. XX is a little awkward and mana intensive, but elves do provide you with a lot of mana. Kamal might be better, even though he's not an elf. Oh, and I can't forget Prismatic Piper. He can be any creature type, so he can belong in any tribal deck and... Oh wait, he's a shapeshifter, not a changeling. Oh, what are you supposed to use this idiot for? These are commanders that care about artifacts in one way or another. Akiri Lineslinger and Silas Wren's Seeker Adept are the two old partner commanders that cared about artifacts. Armix Filigree Thrasher cares about artifacts and being able to recur those artifacts. Silas Wren is obviously a solid partner since he makes up for the discard cost of Armix. Glaceon, Kezkit, and Toggle help power up Armix's -X, but it honestly doesn't need to be powered up by much since creatures don't have very high toughness. I think Silas Wren is your best bet, unless if you want artifact protection, then you can run Rebek. Glaceon Power Stone Engineer cares about having as many artifacts on the battlefield as possible, and he fills up the graveyard. Silas Wren, yet again, is an obvious choice. I already went over Ichtekik in the token section, but in conclusion, he doesn't do much except under very specific circumstances. Pairing him with Kezkit may be what you want to do, since Kezkit is a sacrifice outlet. Also, Chevezet can be used as a sacrifice outlet too. Also, Armex is a golem, so if you really want to go golem tribal for some reason, then you can use him. Kezket the Flesh Sculptor says creatures or artifacts, so it would work in either one of those strategies that are looking for a sacrifice outlet. Rebek Architect of Ascension pairs well with any commander that wants to protect their artifacts. She kinda reminds me of Padim, and his ability to give hexproof to your artifacts. The rocks that Toggle Goblin Weaponsmith makes are token artifacts, so the deck can really benefit from artifact synergy cards. These commanders are about getting as much mana as possible to cast huge threats. The commanders are either big drops themselves or have some synergy with high CMC cards. Thrasios, Kaidel, and Vile Smasher were the original partner commanders that cared about big mana. Elena Kezig Trapper gets you mana, and gets you even more mana if you play a creature with a high mana power, which high CMC creatures often have. Brenolin the Moonkraken being an 8-drop already makes him a big creature, but he also cares about cards with a CMC of 6 or greater. He's best off being paired with Galandra since he cares about 6 CMC and higher drops too. Speaking of which, Galandra Caller of Wirewood belongs in this archetype too since he ramps and benefits from casting bigger drops. The more mana you have, the better Kamal is. Like I said before, a build of Kamal can focus on just ramping and letting him one-man the game. Galandra's a good pair just because he's a mana dork in the command zone. These commanders have some kind of synergy with +1/+1 counters. Ishai Ojatai Dragonspeaker and Rayhan Last of the Abzan are the old partner commanders that care about +1/+1 counters. Alharu Solemn Ritualist comes in and puts 2 +1/+1 counters on 2 different creatures, which honestly isn't very exciting. Ichtekik Salvage Splicer puts +1/+1 counters on himself and your golems. Rayhan and Slurk can help ensure those +1/+1 counters stay on the battlefield. Kelith Sunmane Familiar puts +1/+1 counters on your commanders when they attack. Rayhan can help ensure those counters stay on the battlefield. Nadir gets +1/+1 counters whenever a token you control leaves the battlefield. It's honestly a little awkward being a +1/+1 counter deck / elf tribal deck / token deck / sacrifice deck. He's just getting pulled in too many directions. I'd probably just ignore the +1/+1 counter synergy. Sangir the Dark Baron gets +1/+1 counters whenever a creature dies. Not much +1/+1 counter synergy, but something. Slurk All Ingesting, like Rayhan, can be used to keep the +1/+1 counters on the battlefield, but it's more of a go wide approach with Slurk. These commanders benefit from sacrificing permanents, or are sacrifice outlets themselves. Dargo the Shipwrecker can sacrifice creatures and artifacts to make him cheaper. Rograk is a decent commander to pair with him, basically turning him into a 5-drop instead of a 7-drop. Kezket having to sacrifice 3 other artifacts or creatures is a lot, so you want to be pooping out a lot of permanents, so probably a lot of tokens. Tevetzat Doom of Fools provides a deck with both sacrifice fodder and a sacrifice outlet. Rograk can be solid sacrifice fodder for his +1. I recently made a deck tech on this partner combination if you're interested in that deck. Link in the description. Tevetzat works with the other 2 sacrifice partners since his 0/1s provide them with sacrifice fodder, and his +1 will make the deck run more efficiently. Sengir the Dark Baron gets 2 +1/+1 counters whenever another creature dies, so, it's cool, I guess. These commanders have a Flying Matters mechanic attached to them, or they simply have flying as an ability to synergize with the Flying Matters cards in the deck. Ishai, Crom, and Ravos have nothing to do with flying tribal other than having flying, but you still might want to consider running them. Flying is one of the abilities that trigger a Chroma Vision of Ixidor, and she has flying, so you might want to use her as a way to pump up your flying creatures. However, Ravos does the same thing, but costs 2 less mana, gives you access to another color, and has a solid ability attached to him. Elegith Crossroads Augur is supposed to be combined with Siani to enable you to draw a ton of cards, so it ended up being a flying / scrying deck, which seems pretty solid. Elegith also works with Thrasios since his ability scries. Isior Wardwing Familiar gives all your commanders a little bit of protection, and is an efficiently costed flyer. It works well when paired with Radiant as a protection deck to ensure Radiant stays alive. Radiant Sarah Archangel really cares about flyers and can be paired with Isior for a super protection deck, or Sione for a pure Flyers Matters build in blue and white, which are the two colors you need. Sengir, the Dark Baron, has flying, but is really more of a death triggers deck, I guess. Sione, Eye of the Storm, is probably the partner most geared towards flying tribal. Scrying is a solid ability, especially paired with Elegith. It's just a matter if you think she's the best commander for flying tribal. I think the new kanji is probably better for that archetype, so I think her niche is as a scrying/flying tribal commander. These decks either have a specific infinite combo that they're going for, or the two partner commanders create a powerful synergy that you use to win the game. Rograk has 4 abilities on him, making him the perfect partner for Achroma. But you know what's even better? How about 2 Achromas? Sakashima coming in and giving you a second Achroma will probably win you the game, if you even have a halfway decent board state with keyword ability creatures. Elena Kezig Trapper can be built like a monogreen Selvala deck, meaning you're trying to get infinite mana with a card like Umbra Mantle or Staff of Domination, by tapping your commander for more mana than what's needed to untap it. You can then use the infinite mana to win the game. Jessica could be your combo finisher, since she can do infinite damage to your opponents if you have infinite mana. Thrasios is another commander that wins you the game if you have infinite mana. I'd probably recommend him over Jessica since he gives you 2 other colors to work with. Anara Wolvid Familiar can be a World Slayer deck. I have a deck tech on Zergo World Slayer if you want to know how a World Slayer deck works. Basically, you equip World Slayer on something that's indestructible and hits someone, and that wipes all permanents, including lands, except for the indestructible creature and World Slayer, meaning you can do this every combat too, which shuts your opponents out of the game. Dargo the Shipwrecker is an incredibly fast combo deck. It's a 2-card combo of Dargo and an infinite sacrifice outlet that gets you red, so Phyrexian Altar or Thermopod. There are other combinations of cards that do this too, but these are the 2 simplest ones. This works because each time you sacrifice Dargo, it makes him cost 2 less to play, which pays for the commander tax, and then getting red mana pays for the 1 red in his mana cost. Once you can cast him infinite times, you get infinite ETBs, death triggers, and an infinite storm count with Dargo, which lets you win the game in a myriad of ways. He legitimately seems like the fastest combo deck out there, especially paired with a commander that lets you get solid colors like blue, green, or black. Probably the best partner pair is Silas Wren, since he can get Phyrexian Altar back if it gets answered, and he gives you access to black tutors and blue counter spells. Rograk plus Cloudstone Curio plus Dockside Extortionist gets you infinite ETBs if Dockside makes 2 treasures, and gets you infinite mana if you get 3 or more treasures. You do this by having the 2 bounce each other infinitely. Once you have infinite mana, you can cast either Jessica or Thrasios to pump infinite mana into to win the game. I'd recommend using Thrasios over Jessica just so you have access to green and blue. Kodama of the East Tree when paired with Tago is infinite when you play a bounce land. Yep, that's it, a bounce land. Really, anything that gets you a token whenever a land enters the battlefield goes infinite with Kodama and a bounce land. So you end up with infinite landfall triggers and infinite tokens, so there are a lot of ways to win with those triggers. Sakashima plus Kodama plus a bounce land can also make infinite landfall triggers. I think about the only thing holding this deck back is Kodama's high mana cost of 6, which is a lot in CDH, even for a green deck, but the deck should be incredibly powerful anyways. Kark the Thumbless when paired with Sakashima does some stupid stuff. Since Sakashima allows you to ignore the legend rule, the name of the game is to get as many Karks on the battlefield as possible, to get as many copies of spells as possible. The deck is honestly ridiculous, especially paired with extra turn spells. These are commanders that didn't fall under any of the previous categories. Helena Kezig Ranger is a creature punch commander. If you got a creature deck that wants some removal in the command zone, then she's the gal for you. Livio Oathsworn Sentinel. I don't know what to do with this guy. He's so slow and clunky. There's no partners with strong ETBs that you want to abuse. I just don't get this guy. If you want to play an ETB deck, just play a good commander instead. Well, I want to thank you for watching and...
I think you're forgetting something.
Oh, what is this?
Me! me, the best card, Prismatic Piper.
No, I'm not. You suck, dude.
Silly mortal, how could I, Prismatic Piper, suck? Look at my flavor text. I'm everything and nothing. I'm both God and the abyss.
Nah, you're just nothing. You freaking suck.
But I can be any color.
Oh, who cares? And look at your stats. A 5-mana 3/3? What are you, a creature from the 90s? Get out of here.
No, not until you give me, the Prismatic Piper, the proper valuation I deserve.
My valuation is you suck, and I hate you. Good.